Greetings, class. Well, we're getting close to the finish line. We're beginning week 6, and I do hope you've enjoyed this class thus far. Again, I want to reiterate, I have enjoyed your discussions, how you've shared, and the input that you've given. It's been enlightening, it's been refreshing, and I appreciate the time that you have put into this. I want to remind you about this week's assignments that are coming up. We have our threaded discussion as normally we do, and this one will be kind of a unique one. I hope you enjoy it. We also have our reading reflection this week, and then there is a sentence outline as you'll be preparing. You're getting ready for your research paper, and this week you'll be compiling an outline of your work. You'll want to have a structure for your paper. An outline is a good form to help you in preparing this. Many of you may have done several of these, and for some it may be new, but nonetheless, an outline is very beneficial in helping you stay on track and not, as we like to say, chase rabbits. It can really help you to save time by preparing an outline. So I hope you take advantage of this to its fullest as the research paper and our class is coming to a quick end. And I thank you for all the efforts you've been putting into this. I want to share just a few thoughts about this week. You're looking in Romans chapter 9, 10, and 11. In your reading, you see this is a juncture between two sections of this book, but yet it has some powerful information in it I believe will be beneficial. In this assignment, we read about the relationship of God with the Jews as the natural branches and the Gentiles who have been grafted in. And we see that relationship between the two. And in this, we see God described as a God of wrath and a God of mercy. And this seems to be a great contradiction, especially in people who are not spiritually minded. When you're speaking of someone who is not a believer, they might wonder, how can God be both a God of wrath and a God of mercy? And this is a great problem among many in the world today, is they cannot see God as being both. And so they see either God as some mean God with a sledgehammer getting ready to kill everybody, or they go to the other end of the pendulum and they look at God as a God of just mercy and whatever goes. These thoughts of today are nothing more than continuations of the heresies that Paul had to deal with in the early church. Well, I want to illustrate something today, about how can God be both a God of wrath and a God of mercy? Can God be both? Or if he is both, which part's greater, wrath or mercy? When you stop and think about it, and when you look in the scripture, there are many attributes of God. And we can tend to think of God with our human understanding and try to divide God into different parts with his different attributes. Even in our reading this week, as we look, we see several attributes of God that are being listed. We see righteousness, wrath, mercy, compassion, power, goodness, severity, wisdom, and knowledge. All of these attributes are given to God, and they're a part of his makeup. And so we reason in our human mind, well, how much of each one does God have? God is a God of love. Love is not listed, but we know he's a God of love, and surely that's the predominant attitude of God. Or people that have been raised in a very harsh attitude toward Christianity, they would look at God as a God of wrath, that has to be his dominant thing because he's holy, and therefore to maintain his holiness, he has to be a God of wrath. So you can add even more attributes of God. We shared some of those. He is a God of peace. He is a God of love. He's a God of truth. He's a God of comfort. He's a holy God. These are some of these attributes of the many we can attribute to God according to Scripture. Now, as we assess people or counsel people, we find traits and attributes among us as humans that are stronger within us, or some even dominate us, along with other attributes that are much lesser or seemingly absent within us. And so, as we evaluate our human selves, we tend to use that same evaluation tool with God. That's a natural thing. But I want to just show a simple illustration of how God is all of these attributes and can be just with all of these, in contrast to us as humans. Now, I'd like to show you this little paper here. This is God. And we think of God and we've listed all these attributes and we think, well, God has so much of each one of these. So, you know, God, if all this paper represents God, then, well, you know, here's God's mercy, you know. Oh, and here is, oh, this is a good one. Here's God's truth, a lot of truth in God. Or here is the peace of God. And here we find that God is, here's the mercy of God. And here's the compassion of God. Here is, oh, this has got to be the power of God. And we see here that this must be the righteousness of God here. This is the righteousness of God. The severity of God. The goodness of God. And on we list these. Oh, and this must be, you know, this is the love of God. It's a big attribute. And we go on and we try to divide God into all of these different things with our understanding, some smaller, some greater. But God is God. That sounds simplistic, but it's nonetheless the truth. So what we need to understand is God is not a little bit of this or a little bit of that. But God is 100% wrath. He is 100% knowledge, 100% power, 100% truth, 100% holy, 100% love, 100% wisdom, and on and on. As we list these attributes of God, we can't do human math in God's composition. He is all of these at all times. For the last verse even gives a confirmation of this. In Romans 11:36 it says, "For of him and through him and to him are all things, to whom be glory forever." You see, God is the source, the agency, the ultimate end. He is our creator, sustainer, the goal of all life. All events are of him, through him, and for him. Therefore, he deserves all the praise and glory. All the fullness dwells in him. The God who made all things and by whom all things consist and are held together has all of these attributes in him without any of them lacking or missing. God is not divided. God is not less in any of these. We can't think of God in human terms and with human limitations. He is God. He is just in all of these traits. And because he is always all of these things, he always does what we need, and he always has what we need. I hope you'll enjoy week 6. And remember, this mighty God is our God today.